Welcome to the All Sorts podcast, where curiosity blooms and knowledge takes flight.
Today we're diving deep into something maybe a little overlooked, but really fascinating.
Exactly. We're exploring the world of African edible insects. Sounds niche, maybe, but it's teeming with potential.
It really is. We've been looking at research reviews, articles digging into indigenous knowledge.
Yeah, trying to get a handle on the nutritional side, the traditional practices, and, what the future might hold for these creatures.
And for you listening, we want this to be one of those aha moments of fresh perspective without getting totally bogged down in jargon.
Right. Our mission today, just to pull out the key nuggets, the really important stuff about African edible insects and why they matter. Okay, let's get into it.
Well, the first thing to grasp is just how widespread this practice is historically. Eating insects or entomophagy.
Right, it's not some new health fad.
Not at all. It's a traditional practice deeply woven into nutrition across many parts of the continent for a long, long time.
We looked at one study from South Africa in Limpopo and KwaZulu-Natal, KZN.
Yeah, that one was interesting. It documented the local indigenous knowledge, which insects people eat, how they collect them, prepare them, all that detail.
And it found a pretty stark difference between the two places.
Huge difference. In Limpopo, they found, 95% still eat insects, at least occasionally.
95, but then in KZN.
Much lower. Only about 28% occasionally.
Wow. So what's behind that drop in KZN? Did the research suggest anything?
It pointed towards a few things. Maybe the influence of more Western-style diets creeping in.
Okay.
Also, perhaps just a shift in attitudes, maybe less comfort with eating insects now.
Yeah.
And possibly they're just not as readily available as they once were.
That makes sense. It really makes you think about how these traditions persist or fade, doesn't it?
It does. It's about cultural shifts, food system changes. Lots going on.
So what kind of insects are we talking about in those areas?
The study found 8 main species from 5 different insect groups. In Limpopo, the big one was the mopane worm.
Ah, yes, the caterpillar. I've seen pictures.
Exactly. And in KZN, termites were the most preferred.
Termites. Also quite common elsewhere, I think. And preparation. Did that vary too?
It did. Limpopo favored sun-drying them. KZN leaned more towards frying or roasting.
Different textures, different tastes, I imagine.
Definitely. And this isn't just South Africa, of course. Our sources show insect consumption is common in Zimbabwe, Angola, Tanzania, Nigeria, Botswana, many places.
Not everywhere.
Ethiopia is an interesting counterpoint. There, certain religious beliefs have historically limited insect consumption.
Fascinating how culture and religion shape the dinner plate, so to speak.
Absolutely. And another key point from the research collecting these insects traditionally, that's often primarily women's work.
Right, gathering them from the wild. Okay, so let's shift to the why. What makes them so valuable? The nutrition.
That's a huge part of it. They're just packed with nutrients. Good quality protein, fats, vitamins, amino acids.
The building blocks of protein, yeah?
And minerals too, like zinc and iron, which can be hard to get enough of.
One review focused just on crickets, right? And the numbers were pretty staggering.
They really were. Over 60 cricket species eaten in nearly 50 countries. And the protein content, 55 to 73% of their dry weight.
55 to 73%. That's higher than a lot of conventional meats.
Often, yes. And the fat content, the lipids, also significant, maybe 4% up to over 33% dry matter.
So nutritionally dense. But the review also talked about sustainability, didn't it?
Big time. Crickets are being flagged as a really promising sustainable fat source. They're nutritious, yes, but also relatively easy to farm.
Easier than cows or pigs, presumably?
Much easier in many ways, and with a smaller environmental footprint. Think lower greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay.
Less water needed, less feed needed, and they don't require vast amounts of land like livestock often do.
And they're efficient at converting feed into cricket.
Incredibly efficient. The review mentioned the common house cricket, Acheta domesticus.
The ones you buy for pets sometimes.
That's the one. It's apparently twice as efficient as broiler chickens and pigs at converting feed to body mass.
Twice as efficient. Wow.
And even more efficient than sheep or cattle.
Yeah.
From a resource perspective, that's a massive advantage.
Just looking at the protein numbers again for that house cricket, 62 to 71% dry weight. You compare that to roasted goat or chicken.
The cricket often comes out ahead, yeah. And it's not just the amount of protein, it's the quality.
Meaning the essential amino acids, the ones our bodies need but can't make.
Exactly. Edible insects generally provide a good whack of those, somewhere between 46 and 96 grams per 100 grams of total amino acids, roughly. It varies, but it's significant.
What about the fats? Are they the good kind?
A lot of them are, yes. You find good levels of oleic acid, linoleic acid, those MUFAs and PUFAs, the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats.
Okay.
Some species are particularly high in specific ones, like linoleic acid or oleic acid.
And minerals. You mentioned zinc and iron.
Yes, and also phosphorus, potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, often in higher concentrations than beef, pork, or chicken.
Higher calcium even. I thought maybe not, without bones.
Well, maybe not higher than milk, obviously, but often higher than common meats. Their calcium levels are still pretty decent, and the iron and zinc can be particularly impressive.
And energy calories.
Also quite high. It varies a lot by species, but the range can go from maybe 18 up to over 500 kilocalories per 100 grams dry weight, often more energy dense than meat.
So powerhouse nutrition. But are they used for anything besides food?
Traditionally, yes. Our sources mention medicinal uses.
Like what?
Things like treating fever, high blood pressure, even swelling, or athlete's foot in some traditional systems.
Really?
Yeah. And certain crickets, like brachytroops, were sometimes given as supplements believed to help with mental development or support new mothers.
Wow. Any modern research backing that up?
There's ongoing research, actually, like using cricket powder to help combat nutritional deficiencies in kids. Some early results suggest it might help with growth and learning.
That's promising. What about feeding them to animals?
That's another big area of interest. Because they're so nutritious, they could be a good, possibly cheaper, alternative to standard livestock feed.
Makes sense.
Studies have looked at replacing part of the feed for broiler chickens, for instance, with cricket meal. Seems to work pretty well without hurting their growth.
And then there's the whole cultural side too, right? Folklore, art.
Definitely. Cultural entomology, insects pop up in stories, superstitions, crickets being good luck or bad luck, depending on the culture, that kind of thing. It's a rich area.
Okay, so once they're gathered or farmed, what happens next? How are they processed?
Traditionally in Africa, it usually starts with cleaning. Sometimes gut removal, depending on the insect.
Okay.
Then washing, followed by some kind of heat treatment, roasting, boiling.
To cook them and make them safe?
Exactly. And often followed by drying, maybe sun drying, and sometimes grinding into a flour or powder.
And for animal feed, is it similar?
Pretty similar steps. Cleaning, heat processing like blanching or roasting. Drying could be sun or oven. Then chopping or grinding into a meal or pellets.
Does all this processing change the nutritional value?
It definitely can.
Yeah.
Boiling, for example, might leach out some protein and other water-soluble nutrients.
Right.
Roasting might actually concentrate minerals, but maybe make the protein a bit harder to digest. Drying methods matter too. How much water is removed affects nutrient concentration.
And does it affect how you can use them in food? Like, does it change how insect flour behaves?
Yes, it affects what are called functional properties. Things like how much water or fat the flour can absorb, how well it disperses in liquid, its bulk density. All important if you're formulating a food product.
And safety is obviously key. What are the main concerns there?
Microbial hazards are one bacteria, fungi. The heat processing helps reduce these, but you have to be careful about recontamination during storage.
Makes sense. What about chemicals?
That's another potential issue. Pesticides from the environment or heavy metals from the soil or water can accumulate in insects. It varies a lot by species and location, though.
Are there any downsides naturally present in the insects themselves?
Sometimes. Some contain anti-nutritional factors, things like phytic acid or tannins, that can slightly reduce your body's ability to absorb minerals. Processing can often help lower these.
Okay. And allergies or toxicity?
Yes, those are important considerations. Some people can be allergic to certain insects, just like allergies to shellfish or dust mites. There are reports of allergies to mopane worms and crickets, for instance. And very rarely, some insects can be toxic if not prepared correctly, or if there are specific toxic species, like certain termites mentioned in Burkina Faso. Processing can sometimes affect allergenicity, too, reducing or even increasing it in some cases.
So definitely things to be aware of and manage. Looking ahead then, what's the big potential?
Well, using insect flour is generating a lot of buzz, adding it to familiar foods.
Like bread or biscuits?
Exactly. Biscuits, bread, energy bars, maybe even complementary foods for infants to boost nutrition. It's about improving nutritional value and also, importantly, acceptability.
Getting people comfortable with the idea.
Right. There's also interest in extracting the fat from insects, maybe for food use or industrial applications, and getting compounds like gelatin or chitin out of them.
Treat, that's the stuff in their exoskeleton.
That's the one. It has various potential uses, but as the research highlights, there's still work to do.
More research needed. On what specifically?
Optimizing those post-harvest methods, really nailing down the food safety aspects for different species and processes, and getting a much better handle on allergies and any potential toxicity.
It's good to hear some countries are already developing standards for insect-based feed, though.
That's a really positive step, yes. Shows formal recognition of their potential in agriculture.
So wrapping this up, it feels like the main takeaway is, well, these insects are a really valuable resource.
Definitely. Nutritionally rich, culturally significant in many places, and holding real promise for food security and maybe even economic development in some areas.
But we need that ongoing research to make sure we use them safely and effectively.
Absolutely. It's about unlocking the potential responsibly. It certainly gives you those aha moments, making you think differently about food sources.
It really does. It makes you wonder, as we look for sustainable food for the future, maybe we shouldn't just look at high-tech solutions.
Maybe part of the answer lies in revisiting traditional knowledge like this and tapping into the potential of the natural world that's already around us.
Exactly. What other hidden food treasures might be out there, just waiting to be rediscovered or better understood?
A very interesting thought to leave people with.
Before you go, let the echoes of discovery linger. If this deep dive into the world of edible insects has sparked your curiosity like a sunrise over the savannah, then join the thriving ecosystem of knowledge at the All Sorts podcast.
Yeah, become part of the community.
Like a weaver bird meticulously crafting its nest, weave your support into our vibrant community by hitting that subscribe button on YouTube.
And share it. If you found this interesting, pass it along.
Share this episode like seeds carried on the wind, nourishing the minds of others. Explore our archive, a rich landscape of past explorations.
We've covered a lot of different topics.
And follow the All Sorts podcast on X, Instagram, and Threads, where ideas blossom and conversations take flight.
Your engagement really does help us keep doing these deep dives.
It absolutely does. Your engagement fuels our journey of discovery. Thank you for being a part of the All Sorts podcast.